All through the exile, Brahmins would visit the Pandavas in the forest, and one of them, returning to Hastinapura, went to see Dhritarashtra, who received him with honor. What the Brahman carried back to the blind king was news, and the news was not comfortable to hear. The Brahman told how the Pandavas, born princess, now lived at the mercy of wind and sun, enduring great privations and bearing it all with dignity. Dhritarashtra listened, and somewhere in him there was probably real sorrow for his nephews. But sorrow was not the feeling that kept him awake. Fear was, for what truly troubled the king was the consequence to his own children. Could Yudhishthira go on holding back the justly furious Bhima forever? Dhritarashtra feared that the anger of the Pandavas, dammed up year after year, might one day break its banks and come down on his sons in a devastating flood. He turned it over in his sightless mind. Arjuna and Bhima will surely try to punish us, he thought. And Sakuni, Karna, Duryodhana, and short-sighted Duhasna are like men perched high in a tree reaching for a honeycomb, while below them yawns the abyss of Bhima's wrath, waiting to receive them. It was a vivid, terrible image, and he could not shake it. And the king turned, as he sometimes did, to honest self-reproach. Why did we become a prey to covetousness? He asked himself. It was not poverty that drove us. We had boundless wealth. Why did we take the path of injustice, coveting what was not ours, instead of enjoying in contentment what we had? Wrong cannot but yield its bitter harvest. He saw it all. He simply could never act on what he saw, and one thought frightened him above the rest. Arjuna has come back from heaven with divine weapons, he brooded. What could tempt a man back to earth from paradise itself, except the craving for vengeance? And we have earned that vengeance. These thoughts haunted him and gave him no peace, night after sleepless night. But while the father lay awake with dread, the sons felt nothing of the kind. Sakuni, Karna, and Duryodhana were giddy with happiness, spending their days in mutual congratulation on their prosperity. They had won. The guilt and the fear were entirely the old king's. The young men had only their winnings and their appetite. The kingdom that was Yudhishthir's is ours. Now Karna and Sakuni told Duryodhana, we need no longer burn with jealousy. All true, said Duryodhana, and yet his eyes held a deeper, uglier hunger than mere possession could satisfy. Winning was not enough for him. He wanted to watch the losers lose. Would it not be a joy of joys, said Duryodhana, to see the sufferings of the Pandavas with my own eyes, to bring their sorrow to its climax by parading our happiness in front of them? The only way to perfect my happiness is to go to the forest and look on their misery. And he actually wept with frustration that his father would never permit him this pleasure. My father fears the Pandavas' austerities and forbids us to go near them, he complained. But I tell you, everything we have won is worthless to me without the sight of Draupadi and Bhima and Arjuna in their misery. This life of idle ease is torment without that one great joy. Sakuni, Karna, you too must find a way to win the king's consent. His whole happiness had shrunk to a single sadistic wish. Next morning, Karna came to Duryodhana with a cheerful face and a solution. What if we go to our cattle ranches at Dvaitvana? He said, for the annual counting of the cows. The king can hardly object to routine stock-taking. It was a perfect pretext, an innocent errand that happened to lead exactly where Duryodhana longed to go. Since the Pandavas dwelt in that same forest, Sakuni and Duryodhana applauded the bright idea and sent the chief of the cowherds to the king to request permission for the journey. They would go, ostensibly, to count cattle. What they meant to count was the humiliation of their cousins. And they waited, hopeful, for the old kings, yes. But the king was not so easily fooled. Hunting is good for you, he said, and counting the cows is proper. But I've learned that the Pandavas are living in that very forest, and I cannot send you there. He would not knowingly place his sons within reach of Bhima and Arjuna, while there was still cause for anger between them. We shall not go near them. Duryodhan protested. We will be careful and keep our distance. But the king shook his head. However careful you are, there is danger in mere nearness, he said. And it is not right to intrude on the Pandavas' sorrow in their forest life. A single one of your soldiers might trespass and give offense, and offense would lead to trouble. Send someone else to count the cattle. But wisdom in Dhritarashtra was always a wall of sand against the tide of his son's wishes. Sakuni set to work smoothing him. O king, he said, Yudhishthira knows and walks the path of dharma. He gave his word in open assembly, and the Pandavas will obey him. They will show us no enmity. Do not deny Duryodhan his hunting. Let him count the cows and come home. I will go with him and make sure none of us goes anywhere near the Pandavas. And the king, over-persuaded as always, gave way. Well, he sighed, please yourselves. It was the same weakness that had loosed every disaster before it. A father who could see the cliff clearly and still let his son lead him over it. The permission was given. The Ghosha Yatra, the fateful cattle expedition, was set. The preparations began at once. Hunting gear, fine horses, lavish tents, the whole apparatus of a royal outing readied in haste. And Duryodhan's eyes sparkled with an anticipation that had nothing to do with cattle. He was going at last to feast his eyes on the misery of the cousins he had ruined. The cruelty was the whole point of the trip. And so, the royal party set out toward the forest, splendid and loud. And under all the laughter and bravado hung a shadow that the noise could not cover. They rode out to gloat, and men who ride out to gloat are riding, though they do not know it, toward a lesson. The forest ahead held more than cattle, for here is the deepest truth of the whole affair, and the epic states it plainly. A heart full of hate can never be satisfied. Duryodhan had won everything. The kingdom, the throne, the wealth, and none of it filled him, because the thing he really craved was not to have more, but for his enemies to have less and to watch them lose it. Hate is a cruel fire, says the epic, that itself extorts the fuel on which it lives and grows. Feed it a kingdom, and it burns hotter and asks for suffering. Feed it suffering, and it asks for more. Duryodhan rode toward the forest chasing a satisfaction that his own hatred guaranteed he would never find, and toward a humiliation he had not remotely imagined. That is the story of the next turn of the wheel.